Hello, this is going to be a shorter video, I think. This one I'm going to try to, well, basically dumb it down a little bit, so in case some new people come that haven't watched the series, the introductory series yet, I'm going to hopefully try to make it so they don't get lost. Um, those in, yeah. So basically, yeah, this is about giants. It's been in the news a lot lately, or at least the alternative news, about these really big giants that have walked the earth a long time ago. About how all these different bones from all over the world are found that are just, well, plain huge. Now, as some of you know that have listened to more of my videos or audio with pictures, sorry about that, but as some of you know, I don't really go into too much things other than the main group that is here now. I just sort of skirt around, and I've said, hey, there's no one else but our group really that's involved right now. Yeah, and this is true for right now. As I mentioned before, the stuff in southern part of Africa, that's not us. The ones that dates from a long, long time ago, nope. So where did the giants come from? And what are they? Fallen angels? Devils? Whatnot? Just a race of aliens? Well, if you've listened to the video series, you might have a good idea about about the history. So basically, our group, the one that is here now, splintered off of an older society, as you might remember. The older society was brutal. It was ruled by people that didn't have the types of morals that our group does. And there were kings, people in power, there were slaves. There was basically you can imagine. It was not a good place. So that's why when our group splintered off, it broke off, they made so that they looked like they were just gone, dead, and no one would be looking for them. They split off into what's called another dimension. Those who might have missed it, dimensions are very real, but they're not this mysterious thing. You don't. How they're made basically is at the very, very smallest level. I'll try to go somewhat fast on this. But at the smallest level, matter is basically acting in a wave. If you see the smallest level, things don't work like they do here. It's basically like energies, interactions, forces, this force, that force. Now, you can see that electricity has vibrations it can have in it. You can see that gravity can. You can see that waves can. Sound can. Lots of things have vibrations that either inherent in them or they're capable of. In this case, and not all vibrations the same. A longitudinal wave is not the same as a pressure wave or a compression wave. There's different types, but basically at the smallest, you have a type of energy fluctuation where it goes between different states. And so if you see it the very small, it doesn't pop in and out of existence. It just doesn't. What it does is it's always existing, just in a different phase. Now, it only interacts with other particles of its type in the same phase. And so it naturally goes through a bunch of different phases, naturally. And so that's essentially what builds different dimensions. So Earth is not just the one Earth you know. The same atoms that are building Earth going in and out of phase into other natural phases, natural frequencies, if you will. And there are a number of other natural frequencies that these same exact atoms are in. And of course, they're the same atoms. They're going to be in the same exact number and pretty much building the same types of molecules and whatnot. And so you have different worlds that are right here in this room with you right now that you can't see because they don't exist at the same frequency as you. They also don't exist in the same time as you. They're slightly out of phase from you in time and in energy type. I know that sounds really weird. It sounds crazy, but this whole thing is central to where the giants come from. Now, the original society was on a different natural frequency of Earth. And I know that to me it still sounds really weird, but the stuff goes in and out of existence. It has to go somewhere. And where it goes is to another frequency. It still is existing, and it just doesn't interact with other things, with other particles, so that are on different frequencies. So yeah, Earth is, strangely, oddly enough, there's multiple frequencies here that looks remarkably similar. But you know what? It didn't have the same evolution. Had very, very similar evolution. In fact, there's a number of different natural realms, natural frequencies. Not infinite, not anywhere near that. But there's more than one, of course, and there's more than two, of course. There's several of them. There's a number of them. Now, and one of them, that is where they came from. That is where our society came from. The old society, the one that our group splintered off of. And they splintered off of it for a reason, because like I said, they were violent. Now, one of the things that happens in a violent society, you can tell, is one-upsmanship. And violence and war and this big weapon and that big weapon and so on and so forth. It doesn't take much imagination to see where giants like that came from. It's very simple. It's genetic engineering. Now, the race that I know right now, them on the other side, our society, they're taller than us. Naturally, I don't know how they were before all of their technology. That was a long time ago. But as of right now, they're anywhere from a few inches to a few feet taller than us. I'd say 7 feet is good average. I don't know that there'd be too many more than that. That's a pretty good size. I mean, you're not going to get naturally more than that because of energy concerns, because of longevity concerns. I mean, we are wanting to be, as a species, a certain size. Too big and you eat too much food. I mean, we need to be big enough to be strong and to do things that we want to do, but not so big that it becomes problematic. However, these problematic stuff don't really apply if you're thinking of weapons. Problematic takes a back seat to destructive. Destructive is the the primary goal. And so when we split off of the society, the older society didn't have the technology to go in between dimensions. It just didn't. Or to go in between frequencies. It just didn't. They didn't know how to do it. They hadn't done it before. They hadn't, I don't know if they even thought about it. I mean, they were very advanced technologically. They were. But when we left, they didn't know that. And shortly after that, we kept working on better ways to hide, and our group came up with a way of creating artificial dimensions and then hiding in them. Artificial dimensions are not where where those particles naturally go. They don't naturally stop in certain places for some reason. We were able to control that and make them, and that is where we hide. It's in the artificial dimensions that were not natural. And so At some point after we left, the older society did find how to get to the natural dimensions. And they were using older and poorer technology than what our group had. Our group had a lot better technology. By the time that the old part of society figured out how to get to the other dimensions, then we had figured out how to get to the artificial ones. And so we still were able to hide away from them, but we weren't, of course, big enough in numbers to be able to challenge them, so we just had to hide. Now, the humans, and if you're new to this, I don't sort of identify with the human part, because your soul, quote unquote, if you will, comes from the group that's here basically haunting us, the ET, if you will. They look like us. They are a little taller. They don't really show themselves much. What they do is they come as ET and as this group and that group and all the sorts of pretend stuff that's just for show, really. But no, when you die, you're going to go up to the main part of our society now, and that's the group I'm talking about. So, back to the whole thing. The old society, as you know, was violent. It's really simple. They had kings. They had... Anytime you have kings like that, you have oppression. When tyrants control facts, oppression follows. The tyrants controlled society, and war follows. Anytime war follows, you have division, people getting hurt. And the people at the top are always going to be very, very much smaller group than the people at the bottom. No matter how it's organized, eventually, after a certain length of time, somebody's going to come up and rise up against the people at the top. It's too tempting. It's too tempting a prize for one group to have it and everybody else in society not to. And it's a hard thing fighting against the people at the very top. You tend to need to get friends that will help you. And so this is, as you can see, why things splinter and fight over and over and over again in these types of situations. Whether it's in our Earth or whether it's in their, or whether it's anywhere, basically, it's really simple. You get one person that's really strong and holds a bunch of power. They hold it for a long enough time. Other people get jealous. Other people get stronger. Other people get enough plans, time and resources to plan to take power away from the one that's stronger. And then once a group has sufficient strength, others start following. And you get two groups. And people that have been wronged, people that have been stepped on, people that have been hurt and squished too long, go to the other group and they'd fight and die for it because they've been hurt so much. And the cycle of hurt continues. And so this degenerates over time, and it did for them. They were so strong. They had so much military power. They had so much history in their society. They had nuclear bombs. They had much more. They were much more advanced than we are in terms of the technology. In terms of the morality, no, they weren't. And so they did what they could. They did what they had to. They created super soldiers. These super soldiers were the giants that you see. Now, anything over 7 feet, you can tell, is going to be genetically modified and most likely for war. And some of the reasons why is it's impractical to do that on a long-term basis in a peaceful society. It's just impractical to do that. It takes too much resources for not enough benefit. You don't just eat a bit more food. You eat a massive amount of food when you're that size. You take massive amounts of stuff to keep you going. Now, if you see people that were the tallest humans that have lived, they were sickly. The tallest ones died young. I mean, there were some tall, decently tall people that live a good old age, yes, but the very, very, very tallest have a tendency to get sickly because we were just not designed for that. Now, the giants that you saw were designed for that. They were genetically designed to be tall, to be stronger, to be fierce. They were not designed to be pleasant people. They were designed for a purpose, and that was to be destructive and follow their king mindlessly and violently to their end, just to make sure that they could be part of this strong, strong army. And they were incredibly strong. They were incredibly violent. And from the accounts that I've heard, and I only heard about this somewhat recently, so I mean, you could beg my pardon if I don't really know all the story, is they were cannibals in many cases. They were bred that way on purpose so that they can be so vicious that they'll strike so much fear into the heart of anybody that opposes them that, well, you're not going to oppose them, is at least the idea. But again, the problem is once people have been stepped on and squished and hurt long enough, you have a tendency not to care as much. And a lot of other people do too. And so things have a way of balancing themselves out. Over the long course of things, violence like that is never going to be a way of ensuring a long-term healthy society. It just isn't. Our old society did it. They got as strong as they could. They used nuclear weapons. They got to the point where they didn't have that thing where our society does, where they were outraged that you might wipe out a city with men, women, and children. They just didn't care after a certain point. They just didn't. They had lost this through too much war, too much escalation, not enough sense. And you can see that in the super soldiers themselves, the design of it, the size of it. It was unnatural. And the people here on the earth were not protected from them. They were not. Our group that splintered off was not in a position to protect the earth. But, I mean, lucky enough for the Earthlings, not exactly lucky enough, but just a matter of cause and effect, the old society wiped itself out. Now, all this is not necessarily known to everybody up in our group and the powerful ones here on the earth. If you see a lot of the bullets and a lot of the hollow point stuff, massive caches of storehouses of bullets, this and that, a lot of the truthers think that, hey, this is just here for when the government wants to take us all over and put us in the camps, and hey, you know what, maybe it is. But I believe that this also might be because they fear the return of the giants. And if the giants were to return, they would have seriously justified reasons for stockpiling that much ammo. These soldiers were scary. They were massively scary, and they had the technology to back them up. You would use that many bullets. As many bullets as we stockpiled, you would absolutely use those against those people. They were that tough. But tough doesn't get you going long term. Peace does. These soldiers were mind controlled also. I didn't tell you that, but from what I'm told, it's something sort of like a hive mind type of a thing, where you had a central control via computer, and you made sure through technology that they didn't go against you. Which, of course, I don't know, it opens up for ideas of where they hacked by the other side of the war, or what happened, or who knows. I don't know all the details, but what I do know is this. They lost their fear of death. Oh, of course, everyone still fears death. Everyone does. Each individual does. You can't tear it away from them. But however, they had more anger than they cared about their deaths, and after so much back and forth, they wiped each other out. There's many that say that they would nuke themselves here on our Earth, on our frequency here. And from knowing them, they might have. They were not a good, pleasant group. Now, I don't know exactly how they all got wiped out, but they did. And their portals that you hear talking about them, who knows what become of them? It doesn't really matter. None of the people here are going to really have free reign to go onto the other dimensions. I know that. If any government leaders are going to try to get a portal and go to another dimension, they're not going to go anywhere except the Matrix dimension that doesn't really exist. They'll just get sent into a fantasy land of make believe. That's okay. We'll get back on that later. Okay, so anyway, I told you it's a shorter video. It's been 20 minutes or so. I tried to cover this as good as I can, but really, honestly, like I said, I don't know too much about it. It doesn't really matter. They wipe themselves out, and they wipe themselves out because strength just tends to wipe itself out. You're too strong, someone else is going to be just as strong. You get even stronger, someone else is going to do that. There's no such thing as a contest like that you're going to win. But not in the long term. Maybe short term, definitely short term, but not long term. So, how about the time frame on this? When was this? Again, I don't really know. But I think, based upon all the stuff that I know and was told, that it was before the 10,000 years ago that our group started coming down on the Earth. Because I don't believe it was an accident that our group started coming down around 10,000 years ago. They would not. I mean, they're cautious people. They're not going to come out until it's safe, and they know it's safe. So around 10,000 years ago is when I know that they've said over and over again is when they started coming. And so you can then guesstimate that if our group started coming about 10,000 years ago, that's probably roughly about when the giants died out, wiped themselves out through their own war. And we know that they've said, our side has said that their dimension has basically just been obliterated. It doesn't even, I don't even know that it carries life anymore. They've nuked themselves so much. And it might, who knows, but it certainly doesn't carry humans, and it is a very scorched earth now from all the stuff that was going on. Anyway, so that is about when I think that the giants wiped themselves out. I wasn't told exactly when, but I know our people, and they wouldn't bring all this down here if there was imminent threat from the other group. They were too strong and they were too warlike. Other things that some people think. Some people think, oh, these fallen angels helped build the pyramids. The giants did not help build the pyramids, people. The giants didn't help build the pyramids because they were stupid. They were mind-controlled, cannibalistic nuts that just went around doing stupid things. I mean, they had no more interest in nation building than they would in peace. They don't care about that. That's not what they're after. That's not how they were designed. The nation building type stuff of helping with pyramids and helping with those types of stuff was our group, the peaceful ones. So you see skeletons that are 9 feet tall or more. Those are genetically modified. Those are not representative of any long-term life that's ever lived on this planet. That was a somewhat relatively short-lived thing. Short-lived, it could be thousands of years, but it's still short-lived compared to the overall length of time that our peoples have been on both sides of the earth. This frequency and the original one that the old society came from. Now, So that pretty much does it for giants. Trying to think if there's anything I missed, but no, they weren't fallen angels. They were warlike, pathetic creatures that existed just to destroy stuff. Didn't even have a will of their own, really. It's good that they're gone. It's not an existence that anyone would want. Yeah, a lot of people would like their size, but the size comes with a price. And that price was violence. Their mind was bred for it. They didn't have the ability to think and have the types of beauty that we have that are peaceful. So with that, I remind you that if tyrants control the facts, oppression will soon follow. I try to bring things out here as fairly and with as little bias as I can. I know it's sort of not easy wading through all this stuff, but I'm doing the best I can to give it as honestly as I can, and with as much as I'm given. And like I said, I can't guarantee that I'm not being passed bad information from the group that I'm talking to, because they do nothing but lie to you, honestly. They do nothing that. But I will guarantee you this: I'm very cautious, and I only present the things that I can be as sure of as I can. They're very truthful with me. They really are, because of the nature of what my work is that I have to do. But I don't know everything yet. I only see some things, and I'll say what I can. Till then, fight for truth, fight for justice, fight to bring knowledge out to everyone you can and uncover the lies. Talk to you later.